Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. You know what? I would say happy Monday, but I don't know how I feel about this Monday. Tucker Carlson is done at Fox News. And I'm processing this in real time, and we're about to have a discussion about Tucker Carlson being done at Fox News. We'll be joined by Robbie Starbuck. We'll be joined by Wilfred Riley, guys that have been on the show previously. And then we'll also be joined by Anomaly. And Anomaly is an internet personality, a social media personality. He's one of the most interesting guys I've found on Twitter. He's really outspoken, and I thought of him today just because whether you like what he has to say or not, and some people don't, some people do, I think the guy comes from a really honest place. And so I wanted his thoughts on Tucker Carlson and Fox News parting ways. I'm not going to make Robbie Starbuck wait just because he's been gracious to give us time today. And so I'm going to roll out to Robbie. Robbie's right here in Nashville, but he's in a studio at his home. Robbie, I would love to say I have the perfect take on this and ask for your reaction to it, but I don't have the perfect take. I'm trying to think this through. I know this is a bad day for Fox News. This may actually be a good day for those of us that are tired of corporate media and tired of the games and people pretending not to be corporate media, because that's kind of where I land on Fox News. They had Tucker Carlson, but in every other way, I feel like Fox has been controlled opposition. And so now, without Tucker Carlson, that mask has been taken away, and we get to accept that Fox News is in on it, just like the rest of corporate media. But just your thoughts, and maybe it'll trigger more thoughts in me about Tucker Carlson and Fox News parting ways.
Well, you're absolutely right about Fox. You know, Fox is one of the networks during the pandemic where I turned down going on shows at Fox because they had a vaccine requirement at some of their studios. And I wasn't willing to go on the show, even if it was remote, if they were going to go and put that vaccine requirement on people to go in. One of the few people who didn't do that and bucked the trend was Tucker. And, you know, Tucker was gracious enough to have me on his show a lot. He had you on his show a lot. And the thing I could say about Tucker, first off, right off the bat, is this will end up being a good thing for him. He will only get bigger, but we've got to discuss the reality of what happened here. Tucker has been the voice of the American people for the past few years, the singular top voice in corporate media. He's the only one who has stood up for people time after time after time and would not relent, would not bend the knee to anyone and sell out the American people. That's rare, and it's because he has an actual ideology, and most people in corporate media don't. His ideology dictates that he does the right thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And you can see that in his actions. And that's ultimately why I think Fox took him out today. Because here's the thing. Tucker was planning to do a show tonight. This was not something that was seen as forthcoming by people at Fox. This was a surprise to a lot of people. I think even to people, you know, close to Tucker. I think even to Tucker. And the reality is, they're straying away from that voice because Fox doesn't want a voice for the American people fighting like that, the way Tucker has been, that will not bend the knee. That's the only conclusion I can draw from this. I mean, think about this. They have kept Geraldo Rivera, but they fired Dan Bongino last week, and then this week fired Tucker Carlson. That doesn't sound like a conservative news organization to me. It doesn't sound like one interested in the voice of the people or any America First people at all, because those were your two top America First personalities who truly do have an ideology. And a news anchor with an ideology is rarer than a meteor hitting your house, okay? So this is just shockwaves throughout the media world because this is the voice of the American people. I do think whatever he does next, the people are going to follow him.
There are some that believe, hey, that's not true. The same things were said, oh, Bill O'Reilly, they're moving away from Bill O'Reilly. No one will ever replace Bill O'Reilly. Tucker Carlson did, and I think became even bigger and better than Bill O'Reilly. I was not an O'Reilly watcher. I appeared on the show occasionally. Me and O'Reilly had some beef from time to time. Overall, I wasn't bothered by Bill O'Reilly, but I wasn't captured, enamored. Bill O'Reilly, while pretty good, struck me as the typical newsman. He would say and do whatever was profitable. And that's what I think most people on television do. They just follow the money wherever it leads. And clearly, as it relates to Tucker Carlson, that's not the case. But what do you say to the people that say, nah, Fox will just roll someone else in there and it'll be just like Bill O'Reilly. No one's going to miss him.
Well, Bill and him are very different. I've also been on Bill O'Reilly. We had a recurring argument about Snoop Dogg because I've directed Snoop Dogg. Bill thinks Snoop is a smart guy. I think Snoop is kind of a terrible, vile person, in my opinion. But we had differences of opinion there. And I think that was great about Bill is, he would allow those differences of opinion. You have those debates, but he does not go as far as Tucker. When the world came down, and tried to destroy Tucker and tried to destroy his show and tried to get advertisers to strip their ads from his show, Tucker only got bolder. That is incredibly rare. Okay. There's major differences in the marketplace too. Back when Bill O'Reilly was fired from Fox, there weren't all these other competing conservative outlets. It was pretty much just Fox, and you had very few alternatives to that in terms of actual visual media. Now Fox is fighting all these upstarts from Daily Wire, The Blaze, you've got Newsmax, OAN, you've got all these upstarts who are doing incredibly well, building great audiences, and then you have Rumble as well, and then you've got the dark horse here. Elon Musk owning Twitter, who has expressed interest in starting a TV division, who was just on Tucker last week, who I think is one of the rare people who could go, hey, Tucker, here's a blank check. Do whatever you want. We will syndicate it across Twitter and maybe buy a small TV network and go ahead and syndicate it there. But Tucker, you're in control. Hire whoever you want. Do whatever shows you want, whatever hosts you want. That would immediately become the greatest threat Fox has ever had if that sort of thing happened. Now, regardless, wherever Tucker goes, whether it's Daily Wire, Rumble, does his own thing, it's going to continue a pattern that we've already seen emerge where Fox's market share is being eaten up by these other places. Because frankly, even myself, the only show on Fox I watched anymore was Tucker, and occasionally Shannon Bream because she's a friend. I like her a lot. She's a really sweet person. And occasionally would watch other stuff during breaking news events and things like that. But without Tucker there, I have no interest in watching, and I already don't have cable. I had a Fox subscription. I'm canceling that. I don't need it. There's no show that I really see as essential except for Tucker. And I think there's a lot of people like that. Look no further than my Twitter feed where you can see people, hundreds, maybe thousands at this point of people with their screenshots of their canceled Fox Nation accounts. People are upset. And I think this is going to be very different for Fox than Bill O'Reilly's situation was.
I want to play a couple of clips from Tucker from over the weekend, I believe, speaking at the Heritage Foundation. And I want to play two. One is very short where him just talking about we need to pray. And then the other one it provides a bit more context. It's a little longer, 2 minutes and 30 seconds or so. Let's play them back to back because I tend to think this is at the root of what separated Tucker Carlson from Fox News.
And people should watch the whole thing, by the way. It's incredible.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's play the
Maybe we
clips.
should all take just like 10 minutes a day to say a prayer about it. I'm serious. Why not? And I'm saying that to you, not as some kind of evangelist. I'm literally saying that to you as an Episcopalian. The Samaritans of our time. I'm coming to you from the most humble and lowly theological position you can. I'm literally an Episcopalian, okay? And even I have concluded it might be worth taking just 10 minutes out of your busy schedule to say a prayer for the future, and I hope you will. None of this makes sense in conventional political terms. When people or crowds of people, or the largest crowd of people at all, which is the federal government, the largest human organization in human history, decide that the goal is to destroy things, destruction for its own sake. Hey, let's tear it down. What you're watching is not a political movement, it's evil. So if you want to assess, and I'll put it in and I'll stop with this, I'll put it in I'll put it in non-political, or non-specific theological terms, and just say, if you want to know what's evil and what's good, what are the characteristics of those? And by the way, I think the Athenians would have agreed with this. This is not necessarily just a Christian notion. This is kind of a, I would say, widely agreed upon understanding of good and evil. What are its products? What do these two conditions produce? Well, I mean, good is characterized by order, calmness, tranquility, peace, whatever you want to call it, lack of conflict, cleanliness. Cleanliness is next to godliness. It's true, it is. And evil is characterized by their opposites: violence, hate, disorder, division, disorganization, and filth. So if you are all in on the things that produce the latter basket of outcomes, what you're really advocating for is evil. That's just true. I'm not calling for a religious war, far from it. I'm merely calling for an acknowledgement of what we're watching, which is not what, and I'm certainly not backing the Republican Party. I mean, ugh. I'm not making a partisan point at all. I'm just noting what's super obvious. Like, those of us who are in our mid-50s are caught in the past in the way that we think about this. One side's like, no, I've got this idea, and we've got this idea, and let's have a debate about our ideas. They don't want a debate. Those ideas won't produce outcomes that any rational person would want under any circumstances. Those are manifestations of some larger force acting upon us. It's just so obvious. It's completely obvious.
So I hear that, and it reminds me of where I was at 3 years ago with Fox Sports. And there were larger truths that I wanted to talk about in full while I was doing the show, Speak for Yourself at Fox Sports. And I couldn't do it under the current construct of the show. I was dealing with way too many shallow athletes that, had no command of the facts, no command of reality, mostly thought what they last read on Twitter was a deep truth. And there were some spiritual truths and some godly truths that I wanted to get at as it related to Colin Kaepernick and the whole Marxist movement in sports. And I just realized, hey, I can't do it here. That, talking about Jesus, talking about good versus evil, explaining root core issues that are impacting sports and impacting American culture, just couldn't do it at Fox Sports. And so I just had to leave. And so I see Tucker's spiritual awakening at the root of his departure from Fox News. You buying that?
I could partially buy it from the, standpoint of the fact that I no longer believe we're in a binary political system based on disagreement over details. We're in a fight of good versus evil. And it wasn't always like that. When I was younger, we genuinely had two parties who disagreed on tax rates and, whether abortion should be totally illegal or whether, there should be, some exceptions for rape and incest and things like that. We don't live in that world anymore. OK, we live in a world where there is a radical party, a truly radical authoritarian leftist party who wants to force their will. Even this last weekend, AOC went on 60 Minutes and was advocating for the government to shut Tucker Carlson down. OK, and it's a bad look that Fox then does the work for them on Monday, literally a couple days after AOC calls for that. But this is a fight of good versus evil. And when that happens, when you're in a spiritual war, and, you and I have a lot in common when it comes to this. That was the big reason for me leaving Hollywood, is I was in a spiritual war against my own industry and against myself at times because, the industry would ask me to do things or direct projects that I felt spiritually out of alignment with. And I was in that own battle with myself. And when you're in that, and when you do make the move to say, you know what, I'm going to do what I feel is righteous, good, and godly, evil is going to come after you in every way. And I've experienced that. And I know that for someone like Tucker, it's got to be just really, really immense pressure at all times from that evil trying to destroy your life and destroy what you love and what you want to do for God's kingdom. And so I buy it from that perspective, that there's forces of evil that will work through other people. They say we're fighting principalities. Those things are coming and manifesting in people and situations sometimes. And I think Tucker's definitely facing those types of things down. However, when you are doing the righteous, godly thing and you refuse to back down and you embrace the masculinity that God placed inside of us as men, and you say, I'm going to be a leader, I'm going to unashamedly step forward when they're taking that last shot at me, when they think that they can knock me down, I'm refusing to go down. I'm refusing to relent. I'm refusing to be, a victim of this system. That's dangerous. And that's the type of man I believe Tucker Carlson is. I believe you are, and I am. We're the type of people who refuse to back down, refuse to be taken down by any shot from the establishment or any one of these people who wants to take us down that is truly manifesting evil.
The other thing I've been arguing for several years now, that the biggest mistake Fox News is making, and just all conservative media members, outlets is leave New York, leave California, quit playing road games, quit having all of your executives, when they go out to dinner or lunch, they're in hostile territory. The wait staff may not like them. The social circles they keep may not like them. Move to Florida, move to Tennessee, move to Texas, move somewhere where you can have a social life and comfort. When you go out to dinner, no one's looking at you like you're an alien and your thoughts are from outer space. That's how I think decisions like this happen, in terms of, yeah, we're supporting Tucker, yeah, we'll pay Tucker, but you know what? My life would be a lot easier if in my social circles, if when I went out, I didn't always have to constantly defend Tucker Carlson. And so I just wish these people would wake up and figure out, like, hey, I got to get out of these liberal hotbeds and thinking that I'm going to be as effective as CNN's in Atlanta. And CNN can be as woke as it wants to be because Atlanta is woke. It's LGBTQ and it's woke. MSNBC, they're in New York, I believe. They're in heaven. Their employees, their executives, when they go out there, the toast of the town. I wish that Fox News would evacuate New York, but again, I'm not sure, and I say this in all seriousness, not out of animosity, but out of the same thing. I don't know if I'll ever watch Fox News again, and this will be the final pivot that we can all just say, you know what, corporate media, all of it is a waste of time. There's other outlets that I can get through my phone and through my laptop. I can just turn this TV off, other than maybe watching some sports.
Yeah, I would say this is a very different landscape. You look back at when this happened with Fox, there weren't all these other issues. Fox has already lost a lot of goodwill over the January 6th stuff. And, I think that, coupled with Tucker's leaving and just the general sentiment that they have Paul Ryan on the board, is going to rub people the wrong way and lead to a lot of people saying this is my final straw. Enough people to make a sizable dent, a big difference. And we're going to see the ratings dip immediately. But, you touched on a point. I think you back me up on this. Here's the real problem with a place like Fox and them being in New York, okay? It's this. The people who have to deal with the constant looks and stares and shouts and their family being harassed are the hosts and the people who work there who are lower rung members of staff, okay? The real issue here is that the executives want to be in New York. They want to be loved by the liberal circles in New York. They enjoy it. They crave it. They want the love of the mainstream, okay? That's what they crave and desire. You look at that board, that is the problem. These are not people with an ideology beyond money and power. Money and power is what matters to them. It's the currency they trade in. And as long as it is, and that's the makeup of the board, and it's not ideology, that's going to be a problem. It doesn't matter where they move. That's going to ultimately be the issue at the heart of this. You need people with an ideology like Tucker or like you or like me, because we actually believe in something. And that should be at the core. I think news is changing, okay? I think the blinders are off. The mask is gone. People understand now that all news networks have a bias. There's none that don't, okay? Everybody's fighting for an ideology, okay? I think everyone understands that now, even if the media is still condescending us and pretending it's not true. We all understand it. Fox has a bias, CNN has a bias, MSNBC does. We live in a world, though, now where as long as that bias is unmasked and we're all being real and honest with each other, then let's get some people with a backbone and a real ideology in charge of things.
Is Elon Musk a candidate for that? Does he really believe in things? I thought it was fascinating that you say this comes on the heels of Elon and Tucker sitting down for an interview, and I was like, oh, wow, that's a great point. But then I went to, would Elon Musk properly back someone like Tucker Carlson? Does he have that kind of backbone?
I think so. I mean, if you look, I'm not sure if this was coincidence or what, but about a week ago, Elon hinted at the idea of opening a TV version of Twitter, where they have a Twitter TV channel that is live streaming all the time. And just thinking out loud, if he purchased a smaller TV network, you combine those things, that's a powerful force. We've already seen what Rupert Murdoch has been able to do with it across the globe. Elon could use something like that himself for his own purposes in many different ways to make sure that there's a stable place to get the truth out. And I think he really genuinely does care about the truth. I mean, if we're being real here, I think he also cares about having an arm of, let's say, ability to reach the masses when it comes to his projects with things like SpaceX and Tesla. So it doesn't hurt his other businesses like Starlink and things like that. It's a net positive for all of his holdings. So it could be great for him in many different ways. He's already taken the leap and said, you know what, I'm going to go out there and be unashamedly, who I am. And if the left hates me for it, they hate me for it. So, I mean, what else can they really do to him at this point? We're talking about somebody who's the richest or one of the richest men in the world. It's not like they can destroy his life completely. They already tried. And, I think that only hardened his position. Here's what's ironic is, when Elon first came out and started to question the woke agenda, I think had the left just let him do that, he would not have gone as far as he's gone. I don't think he would have even bought Twitter. I think that them pushing him into a corner and attacking him the way they did and trying to destroy his businesses made him go, oh, okay, you guys want to do this? We're at a very different place than even I thought. I'm going to go full bore with it. So I would say this is something definitely in his wheelhouse that he could do.
Robbie, thank you so much for making time for us today. Really appreciate it. Fascinating thoughts. You did exactly what I was hoping you would do. You're giving me more to think about as I process this in real time. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, brother. See you soon.
Right, that's Robbie Starbuck. You know what's just around the corner? The NFL draft. The most exciting prospect in the NFL draft? Being a perfectly groomed head-to-toe man with our friends at Manscaped. Manscaped has long had elite downfield play with their Lawnmower 4.0, but in 2023, they have the rookie sensation Beard Hedger to ensure the face of your franchise is a pretty one. This is a 1-2 punch of men's grooming, is the best acquisition for any at-home general manager. So go to manscaped.com and save some salary cap with our code FEARLESS for 20% off plus free shipping. This year, Manscaped can help you make the sexy pick without forgetting about your big uglies up front. That's right. The Beard Hedger and Lawnmower 4.0 are a franchise-changing combo that will have you looking at your roster with pride. In the season of trimming the roster, Manscaped will make sure you're cuffing all the right players and not any important pieces. Plus, its tough titanium blades and single-stroke efficiency can have you go from a bushy Matt Patricia to a sleek Sean McVay in no time. If you haven't upgraded your grooming tools already, head to Manscaped for a champion worth roster reset. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code FEARLESS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use my promo code FEARLESS. Go from Mr. Irrelevant to a first-round pick with Manscaped. All right, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk some more about Elon Musk. I'll have some more thoughts, and we'll bring in Anomaly. This guy's pretty popular over social media. He's really outspoken. Can't wait to hear from him on this Elon Musk deal. Hey. All right, welcome back. Interesting day to choose a new first-time contributor to the show, but this is an indication of how interesting I find this man's tweets. I don't know his real name. He hasn't been on the show before, but I thought of him today, and again, we thought of several people, but I thought of Anomaly today, and again, for those of you that aren't on social media, he's some kind of rapper, white guy. I don't know if he's a conservative, a libertarian. I don't know what his full beliefs are, but when I thought, like, who could give me a provocative, interesting take on Tucker Carlson and Fox News parting way, he's one of the first people I thought of. And it's because, again, if you know anything about this, comes out around 11 a.m. Central Time, or that's when I hear about it, around 11 a.m. Central Time. And I can think pretty good on the fly, but I like to really marinate and take things to a different level than everyone else and see beyond what everybody else sees. And so I do it by talking with interesting people, no different than we just had Robbie Starbuck on, and he just reminded me of Tucker and the Elon Musk interview and how perhaps Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson are cooking something up. Anomaly is another person that I think will have something interesting to say on this. I know it will be 100% authentic in terms, it may not be accurate, it may not be right, but it will be actually what he thinks. That's my read of his Twitter feed. So for the first time, welcome Anomaly to Fearless. It's kind of long overdue. I probably reached out several months ago and thought I was going to have him on, and then I don't know what happened, but Anomaly won't tell me his name. He needs a haircut. We'll say that off bat. He looks like a San Diego Charger or Los Angeles Charger fan. I'm a little suspect on that too. But anyway, Anomaly, enough with the jokes. Welcome to Fearless. And as best you can, give us a little bit of your background or where you came from and what you've been doing on social media.
You just hit me up quickly. So it was like, within you hitting me up and me coming on, it was like hour and a half. I do my own management, so I'm scrambling to get the info for you. But yeah, I'm a hip hop artist, a news analyst. I've been doing news stuff since 2016, basically took it into my own hands. I saw how dishonest the media wasn't impressed with people's energy, the fear mongering, be afraid. And then in the commercials, they're just shoving pharmacy pills down people's throats. I was like, yeah, this is not impressive. I think I could take a stab at it. So I'm also a hip hop artist. I know you've had Bryson Gray on. We have some songs together and stuff, but I like your intro. I like white guy. I might put that in my bio now. I'm part Puerto Rican, but I'm mostly white guy. So I like that.
Oh, well, you look white to me. Anyway, and I mean no disparagement by that, obviously. But Anomaly, I have no idea. I didn't even look at your tweets to see what you would have to say about Tucker Carlson. I just find your tweets interesting and authentic. What should we make of Tucker Carlson and Fox News parting ways?
For a long time, I've said Tucker Carlson was the number one guy on television as far as authenticity, having good guests on, questioning the war agenda, calling out both parties. And to me, the number two person, I don't even know who I'd put there, is so far below Tucker that to me, he's the only reason that anyone should really even tune in, because it's not just right wing, whatever, or obviously left wing, whatever. It's interesting. It's different. He's not afraid to call out our party or our leadership. So the fact that he's gone, I was wondering when this day was going to come. To me now, no offense if there's anybody else good at Fox that I'm not aware of. I don't really own a television, but there's really no reason to watch anymore. And I think this is a bad day for corporate journalism to some extent because, now I feel like they almost have a full-blown monopoly on the TV because outside of Tucker, maybe Laura, maybe there's a few people saying interesting stuff. Not many, though. It's a sad day for anyone who still watches the boob tube, as they call it.
Yeah, I do think they have a monopoly on the whole deal. And I think there's a lot of red flags, but one of the biggest ones is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but, Tucker got the January 6 tapes from McCarthy and was ready. He took a couple of weeks to study them, him and his team. and they got a day and a half, 2 days into it, and then it just disappeared. And that's that's when I first started saying, hey, there's a problem between Fox and Tucker Carlson. And when I think Chuck Schumer was on the House floor saying that, Rupert Murdoch needs to put a stop to this. And basically the January 6th tape thing went away after 2 days. And that was my first indication of like, hey, this relationship's not going to last much longer.
Right. And even with the Dominion lawsuit, I think it was something upwards of $700-something million. So now they lost in court. Now they're even more nervous, right? Because they had to fork up almost $1 billion. The January 6th, I don't know if it was lawsuit pressure or possibly political pressure, but clearly you saw it, right? It was like, well, let's not drop those tapes. And the sad part is, regardless of what people think about January 6th, whatever side of the debate they're on, it would be interesting to have the tapes, right? That's full transparency. If you think it was worse than 9/11, like people are saying, obviously it's not true. Wouldn't you want to see the tapes? If you think it wasn't as bad as they're saying, wasn't it something we all could unite on, just the transparency of the tapes? So yeah, something's going on there. I think Tucker will be hugely successful outside of Fox News, and I think they're going to be hurting because they've been, I think, in their ownership going a little more left, playing it a little more safe. And, at the end of the day, you need stars at your organization. And Tucker was the guy that was probably doing more for them than they were for him, in my view.
Part of me also thinks that ever since the removal of Roger Ailes in leadership at Fox News, that this was always inevitable. This was, if you don't have someone running that organization who can defend it till the cows come home, who believes in what it stands for, eventually this is what's going to happen. Suzanne Scott and some of the other women they've installed, and Lachlan Murdoch, who has replaced his dad, I just don't think they have the balls of Roger Ailes and Rupert Murdoch. And so it was always going to be inevitable that Fox News would sell out. I think we saw it the 2020 election night. And now, we've certainly seen it, I think, here again today with Tucker Carlson. This has all been inevitable. You remove Roger Ailes, you lessen Rupert Murdoch's control of it. Fox News had no place to go but down.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. The leadership doesn't really have the conviction that they used to have. I think media is a little bit dinosaur. I've always thought Fox was goofy for not picking up more influencers that were talented, that could do street interviews or stuff that could have gone viral. I thought they were always slacking in that department. And then I saw Don Lemon, I think it was 20, 30 minutes later, put out a statement saying that he got canned from CNN and they didn't even tell him, they told his agent. So something seems like it's going on in corporate news, whether it's CNN or Fox, where they're all just trying to maybe rebrand or something. Maybe Fox is like, we're not far right, we're just like the other side. And then CNN, they lost everybody going so far left and fake that now maybe they're trying to rebrand because nobody trusts them anymore. Something definitely seems like it's going on over there. But I don't know. I don't even own a television. And to me, not only is the format weak and the people aren't that interesting, but the commercials are disgusting. You remember the 90s. The commercials were fun, families. It's like Power Rangers. Now it's like pill, pill, pill. And you hear the side effects. They're worse than the thing they're trying to cure from. It's like, it could cause this. I'm like, who's taking these things? It's not me.
Anomaly, who do you trust? And we were just talking about with Robbie Starbuck. Do you trust Elon Musk and what he's doing at Twitter? And could you see Tucker and Elon Musk perhaps partnering up on something that could be viable?
I'll go backwards. I could see them partnering up. Anything's a possibility. Do I trust Elon? No. Do I like him? I do. He's funny. He's interesting. I try to look at results. Like, people, when I say that, they freak out. They're like, well, but what about this? I'm like, I'm not saying to jump in a rocket and put a computer chip in your head with Elon Musk, like smoke weed and put a chip in your head. But as far as what he's doing on Twitter, he elevates good accounts. He retweets interesting stuff. To me, even though he's not even really conservative, and he shouldn't be trusted, he's doing more than most of the GOP did. They cried about, everything for 2 years. They had full power. They played the victim. They didn't care about censorship until they got censored. They let Alex Jones and everybody just go by the wayside. And then they started crying like babies when they started getting shadow banned or whatever. It was way too late. And now, to me, the Republican movement has turned into a victim movement. It's like, we got everything taken from us. But it's like, did your leadership fail on any level? Of course they did. They don't care. So I like the fact that Elon's actually doing something. To me, it seems a little more important than these like subcommittees where it's like, we really got Fauci. Got him where? He probably hopped on a private jet after it and went home. Like, I'm tired of the political circus. And at least with Elon, I don't know who he is and I don't fully trust him per se, but I do like him. And I think his results speak for himself, making transparent information about what was truly going on behind the scenes, really doing a better job with the business of it. I can't hate on the guy, man. I like it and I appreciate him for sure for doing that.
Normally, I'm going to let you go, but I can't have you on without asking this question. What's your problem with Ben Shapiro?
I mean, I just do a good Ben Shapiro impression. I wouldn't say I have a problem. I'm just not really a fan. I think like he's everybody's best friend. And then his wife's a doctor. He loves vaccines. We have to go to war. He believes in free speech, but then everything's anti-Semitic. And, I just find him quite to be a hypocrite because, Trump and DeSantis passed these anti-Semitism hate speech law kind of legislation. And all of a sudden, he doesn't have much to say about that, but no safe spaces when he's in town. So I find him a little hypocritical, but I think he's a nice guy. I would love to chat with him sometime. He seems harmless on the. I'm not a hater. I just ideologically have a few disagreements. That's it.
All right. Well, anyway, your stuff on Kyrie Irving when that was popular, that's what really caught my attention, and that's when I think I first reached out to you and. Just things didn't work out. But thank you so much for making the time. Appreciate having you on. We'll have you on again. Are you a Chargers fan? What's all this blue?
I just woke up. I'm not a fashion. I can be a fashion icon, but I just wake up. I was in bed doing some things. You said, come on the show. This shirt looked nice. It was, not wrinkled. The hat, the God bless hat, these are my own made. And, if you like my tweets, you have good taste. What can I say? I appreciate you.
Thank you, Anomaly. Appreciate it. All right, we're not going anywhere. I wanted to have Robbie and another guest on, and we're going to have Wilfred Riley. But I want to unpack a few more of my thoughts on this and what it means, because I still don't know where I land on whether this is a good day or a bad day for those of us fighting to restore America to sanity. I don't know how I feel about that. I think I probably lean towards good because I think we need this draining of the swamp. And I think Fox News is part of that swamp. And I think them parting ways with Tucker Carlson and not being able to support Tucker Carlson fully identifies them as part of the swamp that needs to be drained. I think they had been getting away with the crap they pulled on 2020 on election night. I think they had been getting away with that, and now they no longer can. I think that everything over at Fox News, all brands have been damaged with this departure of Tucker Carlson. How does the guy running the most popular show on cable news, not the second, third, not the fifth, the most popular show on cable news, get run out or get to a point where he has to part ways with the television network, and he's the only guy with a brand connected to the people. I've been fascinated by Tucker Carlson, a kid that comes from a man that comes from significant wealth in comparison to most people. Private school educated, started out on TV wearing a bow tie, looked like the typical elite. How did he become the voice of the people? I had this conversation with Tucker at dinner a year and a half ago, maybe. like, dude, how did you become the voice of the people? How did someone like me, whose parents were factory workers, whose background and mentality is working class, how did you become my voice? How did you become the voice of the MAGA people that, to me, are very similar to the way that I grew up? You know, my existence was black and working class. And I look at the MAGA people and I see the similarities between those two groups. And I'm like, how does Tucker Carlson sell out and become their voice, the voice of the people? He doesn't fit the profile for that existence. He has a better chance, based on his background, of being Chris Hayes. You know, Chris on MSNBC. It's a fascinating journey that Tucker has been on, and he's played an important role. And so now within corporate media, MAGA, working class people, have no voice, none at all. Years ago, MSNBC had a guy named Ed Schultz. You guys remember Ed, the Ed Show? I can't remember what Ed Schultz's show was called, but it was on MSNBC. And I was attracted to that show. I watched that show. That was my favorite show on MSNBC. And it's not because I agreed with everything Ed Schultz said. He sounded like me. He represented the working class. He was a former college football player, I believe, and he didn't try to kill you with all these words. You needed to go to a dictionary or a thesaurus to figure out what he was saying. He spoke for the working class. He spoke for factory workers. He spoke for union workers. I loved his show. And he got run off at MSNBC. And MSNBC hasn't had anyone that looks like him since. They've had a bunch of nerdy geeks and a bunch of elites that I would never have a beer with. Not that I drink beer, but people that I would never really socialize. We wouldn't play spades or bid whist or euchre together. I'm not even sure if the people on MSNBC know what euchre is. You know, again, some of the black elites, they know what spades is, but they don't know what bid whist is. Bid whist is like what we really play. That the spades, anyway. They don't have any common people. And everything that I've been saying and we've been trying to point out on this show, that there's this separation, there's these elites, and then there's everybody else. And that the elites are trying to set up one world and a set of rules that work for them while sending out all of these fake people. Oh, LeBron James, he speaks for you, the common man. LeBron James has been uncommon since about age 8 or 9. Once all that talent was discovered in him, he became an elite, and he was treated like an elite ever since he was 8 or 9 years old. That's a fact. There are idiots who think, oh, LeBron grew up hard in the ghetto and he's just like me. No, he's not. You guys don't even understand these athletes, particularly basketball players, but it's across the board, football as well. These are elite organizations for the genetically gifted. As it relates to basketball, you have to be about 6'5" or 6'6" to even have a chance. You know what a small percentage of people, this isn't the guys you're seeing in the NBA and even on college basketball teams, they're not the hardest working guys at your school. They're the tallest. They're the most athletically gifted from the womb. You think LeBron was doing stretching exercises to get to 6'9"? He's an elite. And ever since 3rd or 4th grade, when he was the tallest kid in his class, He was treated as such. There were coaches and other people kissing his rear end and doing everything they could to develop his athletic skills so they could get him to the finish line, get him to the NBA, and make money off of it. And so the common man has no voice in American media. And my whole reason for getting involved in journalism was to be a voice for the common man. And Tucker Carlson, despite a completely different background than me and looking like an elite, sounding like an elite, he decided to be a voice for the common man. And he builds the most popular show in cable news by far. And he's being run out of corporate media. That says something about what they think about the common man. That even an elite like Tucker Carlson will not be tolerated if he decides to be a voice for the common man. And those of you that are stupid enough to believe that Joy Reid and her Harvard or Yale, whatever Ivy League school she went to, is a voice for you and is representing your point of view and your best interest, you're retarded. I mean, you're seriously retarded. And I mean every last one of you. If you worked at a factory, if you grew up punching a time card, and you're dumb enough to believe Joy Reid speaks for you, or any of these liberal elites speak for you, you're retarded. You're a racial idolater. You're biblically unsound. Joy Reid, again, on tape or on her blogs, representing a biblical worldview years ago. She took the check from MSNBC and abandoned every religious belief she ever had to serve her white liberal slave masters. And she'll dress up and pretend like and mix in a little bit of language to make it sound like she's down for you. She's not. She's playing a game. All of them are. Al Sharpton, playing a game. His only interest in you is when you or your son or cousin is shot and killed by the police. Then he loves you and is working on your behalf. Other than that, he's doing whatever the white liberal elites tell him to do to support the LGBTQ movement. Is that biblically sound? There's a reason why I get it why people don't like me. I don't blame you. I wouldn't like someone who came and told you you're retarded for thinking the dumb stuff you think. I wouldn't like me either. But I would instruct all of you. Go to your Bible and find out if Jesus was delivering the truth with all the sensitivity and, oh my God, I want to make sure I don't hurt your feelings when I unpack this truth. Or did Jesus say things, did he say truths that made people hate him, misunderstand him, and sit by and watch his own people assassinate him? His own people that he was delivering truth to assassinated him. Jews. And they're not special. I'm not calling them out because black people do the exact same thing. Working class white people do the exact same thing. You're sitting around listening to, oh, Tucker Carlson and these MAGA Republicans. They need to get on board with this wicked agenda. And so I sit and look at Tucker Carlson, and I've been coming on his show, it seems like for 8-9 years. I don't even know how long it shows, but I was living out in Los Angeles. I was coming on his show. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a long time. And I've watched Tucker Carlson get closer and closer to God and get closer and closer to understanding what's at the heart of what's going on in America. There's a spiritual war going on, good versus evil. People promoting a satanic agenda that wants to sexualize your kids and wants drag queens at school and want to mutilate kids' bodies. And he's a parent. He's a man around the same age as me. And it's like, you start looking at it, and if you look at it objectively, you have no choice but to reach certain conclusions. Like, this is an attack on God. And what side am I going to be on? And I feel sorry for those of you that are in a position where you can't be on God's side because it's too upsetting to all of your personal relationships. It'll disrupt the brand you've spent your whole life believing in. Oh, some of your friends may not like you. I'm sorry if you're that weak and your convictions are that weak and your faith that weak, that you would rather be on the devil's side than deal with the discomfort of admitting, hey, I was wrong. I've been thinking the wrong thing. I've been supporting the wrong group. Tucker Carlson could sell out and keep taking every dime Fox News had. They would have paid that dude $50, $60, $70 million a year. It appears from the outside like, no, he'd rather tell the truth. He'd rather face the persecution and have AOC and everybody else and Keith Olbermann and all the other idiots, all the other satanic idiots calling him names and calling him a white supremacist. He'd rather stand on that truth than just take the paycheck and submit. I respect the hell out of it. Respect the hell out of it. Choice I had to make. I don't look back. I don't regret it. I could have easily sat around and made a bunch more money telling lies and promoting things that I don't believe in, or sitting quiet and not saying a word as the LGBTQ, the alphabet mafia, takes over this country. So that's where I'm at the moment today on the Tucker Carlson thing. We'll bring in Wilfred Riley and get his take, as well as I continue to think through the significance of Fox News and Tucker Carlson parting ways. Wilfred Riley next. All right, welcome back. We're going to go out to Associate Professor at Kentucky State University, Wilfred Riley. He's been on the show before. He's one of the most original thinkers I've found over Twitter, always has something interesting to say. He does the Cut the Bull podcast with the First Lady of the Fearless Army, Shamika Michelle. He's the author of a book, author of Taboo, 10 Facts You Can't Talk About. Wilfred, welcome back to the show. I got to say, Wilfred, before I go anywhere, you need to tell the audience what you're doing in the gym, what you're doing in your diet. You look 20, 25 pounds lighter than the last time I saw you.
Well, I mean, I've only lost about 10 or 12 pounds, but yeah, I'm doing what you need to do, what you've done, Jason. If you want to lose weight, I mean, I'm going to the gym or the dojo every day or two. I'm working out. I'm eating less. If you want to lose weight, especially for the men, I mean, you you burn more calories than you take in, and you work out. Running and boxing are especially good. This isn't hard. You don't have some kind of weird glandular condition, so it's just, I'm doing what everyone who's ever lost weight has been doing. So thank you. I appreciate the compliment. But no, I've been going to the track, been going to the gym, just working out when I can. And since my job is thinking, that's pretty often.
All right. Well, you look younger. Thank you for coming on. I woke up this morning, Wilfred, optimistic, and I saw a Tucker Carlson clip of him speaking at the Heritage Foundation and mentioning we need to pray. And then I saw over the weekend Bill Maher made some interesting comments. I thought about Chicago and, hey, how come we don't ever talk? He had Glenn Lowry on Real Time with him, and Glenn baited him into a conversation where Bill felt comfortable, just speaking some authentic truths about, hey, why don't we ever talk about this violence in Chicago and what black men are doing to each other? And so I was like, hey, I wonder if we can get Wilfred on and talk about, is there a sea change going on? Is the tide starting to change? And then, 11 o'clock this morning, I find out that, Tucker Carlson's parting ways with Fox News, and it kind of changed the conversation. But we'll start here. Your thoughts on Tucker and Fox News parting ways?
First of all, just as someone who comments in the media, for that matter, as someone who's an investor, it seems like an insane decision for Fox News to cut Tucker. I like Tucker personally. I've appeared on Tucker Carlson today. But also objectively, the man had the #1 rated show in primetime cable news. And I don't want to jump to conclusions. I don't want to say this was done to appease any demographic out there or something. But this strikes me just offhand from that business perspective as one of a series of irrational decisions we've seen lately. We've seen Jack Daniels use RuPaul's Drag Race contestants to pitch Tennessee corn whiskey. We've seen Bud Light give probably one of their top 30 influencer deals to Dylan Mulvaney. Dick's Sporting Goods entirely stopped selling most firearms. You really could just go, this may be my next column actually, you really could just go down a list of these. The NFL, which targets almost entirely post-athletic white and black men. People were wearing social justice slogans on the jerseys. There was a question about whether they would show the anthem on television. I don't think any of this stuff was done to appeal to the actual consumer base of the brand. And that's an extremely illogical way to make decisions.
What's driving that? You've nailed a point. Why is all businesses trying to appeal to people who aren't their customer base?
Well, I think this gets into this whole, to me, wacky idea of not the shareholder, not the bondholder, but the stakeholder. Tom Sowell, the triple OG Tom Sowell, many years ago wrote a great book called The Vision of the Anointed. And one of his points in there is that in kind of the post-military draft, post-everyone goes to public school era, there's no longer a direct continuity between the American leadership class, which includes professors like myself, which includes media figures, which includes politicians, Democrat and Republican, by the way, which includes senior business executives. There's no longer a continuity that's almost automatic between those guys and the people that they're expected to lead. So a lot of the people that would be in charge of what would normally be, a dream job brand, Bud Light, for example, are people that are talking more to the stakeholders they want to impress than the people that are buying the brand. So, like the person that was in charge of the Mulvaney hire at BL, at Bud Light for Anheuser-Busch, kept making comments like this. her Twitter bio was, proud to be the first female SVP with my perspective to hit up this brand. There's a now viral podcast interview where she says that the audience for Bud Light was made up of sort of, I think the quote was fratty, drinkers at these non-stylish parties and kind of older males, and she wanted to diversify it. So if you're in that position, you're not really trying to appeal. First of all, if I were selling beer and my two customers were old blue-collar men and frat boys, I'm going to be pretty happy with that because they're going to buy a lot of beer. But if you're in that situation, you're not really selling beer to the beer buyers that are in your audience. You're selling a kind of image to the people you want to impress. And in that situation, it's only by luck that there's going to be a connection between the people you want and the people that want your product. And I mean, I have to imagine that whoever Fox News brings in is not going to be a better bet to reach the Fox News audience than the number one host in, right-wing media. That seems like just an obvious statement of fact.
So are they not betting on the fact that they can change the audience, the existing audience, that they're just baiting, we're going to reprogram everybody to like this?
Well, I think that's a big part of it, honestly. I mean, and one of the things that I hear when I talk online, when I spar on Twitter, or not even rare anymore, but when I do left-wing media, is that sort of everything's the civil rights movement. So you hear people say, well, there was a time many years in the past when some people might have objected to interracial marriage or a Catholic in the White House. And I mean, there are comeback lines like, yeah, sure, well, Martin Luther King or that Catholic in the White House would also probably have objected to 4-year-olds, watching a drag show in a late night gay bar. But the banter aside, the idea very much is the same thing. Like, what we're pushing is the positive, progressive cause of our time. And yeah, the customer is going to be taught to like it. Now, leaving aside the fact that, the right is right this time around, and these are very different causes, I don't necessarily think that's a logical attitude for business to have. I mean, we're not talking about the great social causes of the day being debated on a college campus or something like that. The question is, if you're selling beer, should you consistently do irritating virtue signaling things that the beer buying male audience doesn't like, or should you try to sell beer? And I think the obvious answer is B. And in fact, it looks like people got tired of this time around. I mean, if you look at stock value against the cap, they're downplaying this, but Budweiser, AB, lost $5 to $6 billion. You can value it at either during this boycott. And I mean, quietly, but definitely pretty much the entire marketing team that was responsible is getting fired or reassigned. There was another cut today. So, I do encourage people that absolutely dislike what these brands are doing to, shop elsewhere to express that. And I do think, people say go woke, go broke for a reason. If this keeps happening, people are going to start reacting to people on the right or in that mainstream center who actually have jobs and money in the same way that they've traditionally reacted to one or two angry blue-haired people on Twitter. But in the meantime, the desire is real and you see it expressed a lot.
So you're on a college campus, you're a professor on a college campus. Guys like me say, like, these problems are coming from academia, elite academia, college campuses, where everything is a theory and nothing's really reality. That's always been my disconnect with the overly educated. It's like, man, you can talk about all this theory and if so-and-so, if there was just more money invested here and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nah, man, the Crips and Bloods are running these neighborhoods and I hear your theory, but, and so these campuses are producing the marketing people who have a theory of, hey, this is what will work. This is what direction the country's leaning. And it feels like in corporate America, in these high-end executive positions, everybody seems removed from reality and they're doing experiments of their theories of what will work. And they wet their finger and say, yeah, I think Dylan Mulvaney's the future. All women are going to be Dylan Mulvaney one day, so let's start selling beer to them. And it just seems nuts. And so can you defend the college academia environment in terms of, it seems to be producing nut jobs?
Well, I mean, I can defend collegiate academia in the sense that you do need basically educated people. I mean, so I often, when I get roped into teaching one of those University 101 or 186 classes, I mean, and there's some value to those, but I mean, generally, one of the first things I do is we'll ask the students, what's the point in being at the university, as a devil's advocate kind of question. And we'll answer the question to some extent, working in their own replies. But I mean, very few people are going to go through all this material on your own. You get a chance to engage with, brilliant professors like myself. You get a chance to network. I mean, in reality, the number of people that are going to work out how to run linear regression models in State of 13, or that are going to read the complete works of Adam Smith on their own. We're talking about some of the more practical fields like quantitative political science or economics or computer science here. I mean, that's very small. So obviously we do need the university. Now, I would say, no doubt to the horror of some of my bosses here, that far too many people go to college. So, I mean, right now you've got, 70% of white and African-American males, that's all white and African-American males, go to college. So you have that issue of elite overproduction, right? Where when you come out of university, and probably at least half of both those groups graduate, you're going to find that well under 40% of society, well under that percentage of the jobs are designed for someone that has, a state U baccalaureate degree. So you have this problem of people that have gone $100,000, $200,000 in debt and are the shift supervisor at a Starbucks. I've dated several of them when I was in grad school, man. I mean, there's a deep element of depression and worry there. And I don't mean to be sexist about this, but it'd be much worse if you were in that position as a guy trying to be a breadwinner in a relationship, making that $13 an hour. Like, you're never going to buy a house. So you need to make those decisions logically. You need to not assume, if you're going into a field like Spencer and the English poets as a friend's dissertation, if you're going to a field like English poetry, you need to not assume that you're necessarily going to make a great amount of money. That person did find a job. That's why I was comfortable saying that. But I mean, you calculate risks logically. Now, that said, basically, the problem of theory is a real one. Like, my background, I suspect, somewhat similar to yours. I was born on the south side of Chicago. I grew up on the east side of Aurora. And when people say things like, without the police, there would be less crime because people would no longer feel oppressed and they would no longer rob from their own in black or poor white neighborhoods, my reaction is just thigh-slapping laughter, because I know that's not true. Some people are wolves, and I mean, you need sheepdogs and hunters to protect sheep from them. So being aware of that makes it impossible to take a lot of the nonsense that comes out of academia seriously. But yeah, I do think many people have been trained to simply say, well, an expert is an expert. So when some odd things come out of sociology or gender studies, for example, that's obviously the main field on point with this right now, many people simply listen to them even though they are facially untrue. So that's one point. You made it very well. But do we need an academy? Yeah, of course. I mean, people aren't just going to go down to the library in general and learn economics on their own.
What would be the best thing we could do to fix academia? Part of me says, like, one of the biggest negative things going on in academia is diversity, equity, and inclusion, because these major universities are putting together staffs of 30 to 40 mid-level managers whose job is to basically manage relationships and who gets into the university. And again, they have all these theories and they want to control outcomes. And I see that mindset that once these kids graduate, they come out like everything should be run just like how the diversity, equity, and inclusion department ran at my school. That made things better. We had a little special safe space for us to gather. We got a statue of someone. We tore this statue down. We called everything we didn't like racist. And I just see these major, I look at it at my own school, Ball State. They got their whole diversity. And I'm persona non grata at my school. I give a lot of money. I'm their biggest booster. But that diversity, equity, they want no parts of me coming on that campus and speaking to anybody. And they used to have me all the time. But how could we improve academia and perhaps improve the country?
I think that there are a couple serious suggestions there. One, I agree with you, and I'd go beyond DEI. I would say trim useless bureaucracy. So one of the most wild things about academia that I think most people don't know is that at most elite colleges, certainly, there's probably one bureaucrat, not faculty member, for every student. That's certainly the figure I've seen for Stanford, for example. If you go to the University of Michigan, which I wouldn't recommend, ILLINI, but if you do, I mean, their diversity department alone has, I believe it's 112 guys, all making in the low six figures. I mean, that is a DEI point, but I mean, they have many similar bureaucracies. You go from athletics to student life, residence life. And I mean, without being glib, residence life used to be, scrappy RAs in the dorms. I suspect you could get rid of about 95% of that. You could go back to college life in the 90s, which wasn't exactly primitive bear hunting savagery, and you could save an incredible amount of money, and you could cut almost all of that out of tuition. And there are actually some interesting studies like The Fall of the Faculty that look at how at least a fair amount of displaced corporate middle management and similar critters wound up in academia, in government, after, they fell in the last environment where they were sort of hosted. So I would get rid of a lot of that. And by the way, getting rid of DEI would have the secondary beneficial effect of really tamping down on kind of that block warden commie culture in academia. A lot of the stuff that makes academia so unbearable, like the mandatory 3-page diversity statement to apply for a faculty job, the stuff that keeps up almost by definition any honest conservative, I mean, that's a product not of the departments. I mean, something like agriculture is not putting that in there. That's a product of the DEI culture. So if you trim back that office, you get rid of that office like Chris Rufo's doing in Florida, you, as a secondary benefit, you get rid of all that stuff that's going. Major thing I would do. And the other thing would be kind of student side. I mean, you'd have to really look at, the question would really be who gets in. Like any actual merit admissions process would really go a long way toward fixing academia. And that doesn't mean just cutting back on or getting rid of affirmative action. It means the same thing for white legacies. I mean, that's a lot of the, in my experience at least, the sort of feminists and blonde radicals that are going along with the BLM stuff. I mean, the guilty second sons of rich men and so on. I mean, it would mean doing something about athletics, maybe leaving the revenue sports alone. But I mean, at many schools, 15% of the students admitted. The edge is about the same as it is for affirmative action admits, or there to do things like play lacrosse or row crew. I mean, so you have a situation at a lot of institutions. This is true for most of the Ivies, some of the Patriots, decent chunk of the Big Ten, where maybe half of the student body actually got in. So you can't think you can't help but think you'd have fewer disaffected rebels if you just admitted based on test scores and grades. And a lot of the people that are at very elite institutions now would just be at, rock solid schools, including, some of the schools we've talked about, Ball State, SIU, one level down. And they'd probably do quite well there. And you'd major in engineering instead of grievance. So that's another step there. I mean, get rid of DEI. Get rid of the rest of the bureaucracy, too. Merit admissions, no legacies, limit affirmative action. Maybe also, I don't want to just yap on, but also maybe look at limiting the loans for some of these majors, either at the government level or just kick that all over to the banks. It really set some limits on how much you can take out to major in qualitative sociology. Like you have to really have a thought process in mind before you go in to do that. That also would, I can't see it hurting.
So, Wilfred, the reason I wanted you on is, and I'm connecting dots, and you just connected the last dot, and it's why I wanted you on. When you start talking about merit, and because this Tucker Carlson thing is related to our de-emphasis of merit. So here's a man that's put together the most popular talk show on cable news. He's the most powerful, most influential. He's got a bigger audience than any of his competitors by far. But we've created America where that doesn't matter. Oh my God, he said some things that make AOC and that crowd feel unsafe. And therefore, there are people like at The View that are celebrating this. And again, it's all un-American. I'm watching Whoopi Goldberg and people, and she was a talented actress at one, and still is. And could you imagine if she does, Hollywood is this type of DEI environment where your talent is far less important than it used to be, because now it's about hitting a quota and making sure that, oh, we need Cleopatra to be black and we need to make sure the LGBT issues in here and blah, blah, blah. But that's what I see when I look at, like, they just ran off Tucker Carlson. He's the best in his field. That used to not happen in America, or, people would certainly get fired and it would be an absolute horrible look. But we've created a mentality through academia where merit isn't king. Diversity and inclusion are king. And that's a world that is untenable and is unfair and cannot survive for long, in my opinion.
Well, I have a somewhat more cynical take on that, I suppose, as a political scientist. I think that unfair systems can survive for really long periods of time. I was talking to a friend of mine about gender ideology recently. For example, the claim that the first thing you find on Google if you search, can men get pregnant, is the result, yes, men can get pregnant. Non-binary people, agender people, and even some plain men get pregnant all the time. So I said to this person, that can't realistically be believed by many people for a very long period of time. And this guy said, I don't really think that's true. How long did people believe in the pagan religions? 5,000 years? And it was just a funny, cynical comment. But of course, it's absolutely true. I mean, people went to the temple of Demeter in ancient Greece for millennia. People in this hemisphere believed that the coyote god carried the stars up into the sky. I'm not necessarily going to go into my extended commentary on modern religion. So it's people think a lot of interesting things. And in terms of a merit-based society, through most of history, we had noble castes. Power was based entirely on birth. Until, even in the U.S. North, the 1930s, 1940s, it was very hard to be successful if you were black or Asian. Probably beyond that, South didn't integrate till the 50s. So, I absolutely agree with you that the leaders should be selected within our society on the basis of absolute merit. But I tend to suspect that people could play along, even in our social media era, with a semi-broken system for decades, if not longer. That being said, I agree with the thrust of your point, which is that the sort of merit is not it's not 1A kind of culture that's come out of academia, it's come out of the softer sciences, out of pop culture. It is having effects. So, when you look at the majority of leading figures in society, for example, Karine Jean-Pierre, the president's press secretary, comes to mind. The president comes to mind, for that matter. I don't think that most people's reaction to them would be that we are seeing the best and brightest that society has to offer, the highest IQ, most functional, in the latter case, prime age, if you will, people. And that's become more and more and more accepted. And again, we just mentioned that in the typical elite university, maybe half the student population is admitted because their father gave money to the university, or they're a member of an approved racial minority group, something like this. And we're soon very likely to see the different LGBT categories and so on added to this kind of caste system. So I absolutely disapprove of this, but that is the direction that we're trending into. The only question is how long a society can survive with a caste system. And unfortunately, looking at Europe and at India, the answer seems to be a pretty long time.
I don't know whether to thank you or to just start crying. That is a more cynical take. What I didn't want to hear, and you just concluded, I'm not going to see change in my lifetime. I'm going to have to live with this. Thank you, Wilford. Great job as always.
We'll keep
Stay in the gym. Appreciate appreciate you. We're going to have more on Tucker Carlson, I would imagine, tomorrow, or if not this week, as I continue to think this through and what it means. Good start today. Interesting thoughts. Hit me over email, fearlessblazeshow@gmail.com. Give me your take. Help me think this through. I think there's a lot to unpack. I think it's important. I want to hear from you guys. fearlessblazeshow@gmail.com. Slam the likes on your way out the door. I should have mentioned that earlier. Hit that 5-star review on Apple. We'll see you tomorrow.
Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want